If I was to title this, I'd call it He is Risen. And man, He is risen. And it's not only appropriate for today, but it's the foundation of who we are. I mean, do you get a hold of that? It's the resurrection is the foundation of who we are. So let me give you a couple scriptures here. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 14. That was kind of questioning about the resurrection, and here Paul says, "And if Christ be not risen, then our preaching is vain or empty." It's useless. There's no point. And your faith, your expectation, your response to my preaching would be the same. It would be empty too. It would be useless, vanity, empty. No direction. And then I'm just going to skip down to verse 17. Man, the Lord has gave me a great revelation this week. I can't even share it with you yet. That thing's still in there cooking, but it's a little bit of it will come out today. But listen to this verse, verse 17. "And if Christ be not raised," if Christ didn't raise, "your faith is vain." Now that's the second time he says that. Your faith would be empty. "Ye are yet in your sins." So what does that mean? If He raised, I'm not in my sins anymore. I don't know if people get a hold of that. People read right over that because they tell me I've got to repent from my sins. And I said, wait a minute, if He raised, I can't repent from my sins, can I? Because I ain't in them. So repentance must be something else, which it is, which we've talked about that many times. But you know, just reading the very scriptures themselves and seeing them in the light, you think, my gosh. If He's not raised, your faith is vain and ye are yet in your sins. Verse 20, "But now is Christ risen from the dead and become the firstfruits of them that slept." Now let me give you another one, resurrection verse here. This is in the book of Revelation. John saw Jesus as He is now, glorified, King of kings. And he says, when I saw Him as He is now, when I saw Him in that state, in the state that He is now, I fell at His feet as dead. So, I mean, it was such a wonder to behold. I fell on my face as dead. I mean, I couldn't take it. So wonderful. I just couldn't take it. So awesome. I couldn't take it. And He laid His right hand upon me. You know, if we was to write that in view of the gospel that's not a gospel being preached right now, it would say, "And He started telling me all my sins and opened up the book and started judging me," wouldn't it? I mean, that's what it ought to say if we're going to listen to what everybody else is saying. But it says, "And He laid His right hand on me, saying, Fear not. I am the first and the last. I am He that liveth, was dead, and behold, I'm alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death." The entire gospel hangs on Jesus being raised from the dead. Entire gospel. If Jesus didn't raise from the dead, the entire operation of Him coming here failed. You know? He was just a good guy, another prophet that done some miracles and all that, and then crucified Him. If He didn't raise from the dead, the entire operation failed. Then you'd still be in your sins too, wouldn't you? And I can say this, resurrection is greater than creation. If we can get a hold of that. In Genesis, God said, let there be, or be light be, and there was. He made something out of nothing. And yes, that was magnificent and wonderful. But resurrection is calling forth life out of death, out of unlife. Resurrection must overcome death. I mean, as I go through this today, you'll see what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, resurrection completed creation. Resurrection was the completion of creation. It brought it to its ultimate goal. Jesus, the first fruits of them that slept. He brought it to its ultimate goal. Life conquered death. It isn't some sidebar, some footnote to the gospel. Oh yeah, and he got up, and we'll celebrate it on Easter Sunday and then forget about it the rest of the time. I mean, this is it. I mean, if you was to look at it, if you're going down a road or something, or walking a street, and you turn a corner, the complete direction has now changed. If you turn the corner so much that you can never go back. If you think of the gear. You ever seen them pictures of all them gears, and they're all going this way, and all of a sudden, the ground to a halt, and then the reverse changed, and they started going back this way. That's what happened. I mean, the entire direction of the creation changed in that moment. You can never go back. I mean, once the resurrection happened, something happened that had never happened before. You can't go back and pretend it didn't happen, okay? It's in your face. I mean, there it is. What are you going to do with it? You can't pretend, A new age has dawned. A new age. The sun has come up. The sun is risen. Christ is risen, and you know what? You can hide your eyes and stick your head in the sand like an ostrich. It doesn't change the fact that a new day is risen. I'm telling you these things I've seen so much of the gospel this week, I didn't even realize it. But, the whole church is saying, look, here, if you want to be saved, come and do this. Too late. The sun's already up. Your sin's already forgiven. I mean, if you can get a hold of it, so that way I can come to you and say it's over. Because he got up. Now, he didn't just get up as I'm going to go through this. I mean, he got up. He got up. And if people don't believe in the resurrection, that's tough. The sun's up. You believe it or not, the sun is up. The sun is risen. I mean, feel the heat on your face. It's there. You can argue it all you want. You can talk about whatever you want to, but that's true. Even the calendar changed. You ever think about that? Even the atheist has got to look at that calendar and say, BC? What does BC stand for? Our calendar, the Roman calendar that we govern the world by, changed. It's BC. Or AD, before Christ. Something happened. And that resurrection, guy, wasn't an event. Jesus is the resurrection. I mean, he is it. And I'll tell you, this resurrection's never happened before, and it never happened up to this point, and it's never happened again. He's the only one. He entered into death, and having overcome death, rose again. He says here, I am he that lives. That's livingness. Okay? I am life. I'm livingness. He's not merely saying I'm alive. He says I'm the very source. I'm the source of life. And he says here, I'm he that liveth and was dead. Has anybody ever told you that before? I'm life. I was dead, but I'm life itself. I was dead. Has anybody ever come to you and say, I was dead, but now I'm alive? No. I mean, these are fantastic words. I mean, it's just... And he says, I'm alive forevermore, to age upon age upon age, eon upon eon. He's alive. I'm living this, a new kind of life, a brand new kind. A life that has actually gone into death, contradicted death, and came out. And you know what? He defeated it. He can never go back. No rematch. It's over. It's finished. No rematch. Something new has happened here. Resurrection. And I'll tell you, guys, I say it this way, most churches, most people in the world have no clue what resurrection means. It hasn't made it through the walls of Jericho that surround our heart yet. It's not resuscitation. Let me say that. Resuscitation, he was dead and we brought him back to life. That happened many times in the scriptures. What was it? Elisha's bones. That man touched his bones, came back alive. Jairus' daughter, she was dead. The widow woman's son, Lazarus. They all were resuscitated, but guess what? They all died again. Lazarus ain't walking around. He's dead as a doornail. God raised him from the dead. By God's grace and His mercy, He raised from the dead when He was resuscitated. But that wasn't resurrection. They hadn't conquered death. You see what I mean? They went into death. By God's grace, He brought them out of death, but they went into death again. Death hadn't been conquered. And a lot of people will look around at they'll call it some sort of cosmic springtime. It wasn't long ago that you came up here and a rose bushes was dead and the grass was yellow and there's no leaves on the tree and no birds singing, and all of a sudden me and Tim's having to mow and weed eat and pull weeds and the leaves are coming back out on the tree. But you know what? They're new leaves. The old leaves ain't resurrected. The old leaves is laying out there in the dirt. They're worm food. And you know what? I can just hear creation coming on saying, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And then, about August, it'll start saying, oh, I'm tired. Come September, I'm wore out. Come October, those leaves will fall off the tree too and be dead again. And we'll go through that cycle. That's what we call that a cycle of life. That's not resurrection. Resurrection is not only the end of something, it's the beginning of something. That's the reason they can say once at the end of the world, all these times. It was the end of one thing, but yet it was the beginning of something else. When Jesus came out of death, it was the end of death. But also a new beginning that nobody had ever even conceived of. Couldn't conceive of it. Paul said these things couldn't even enter into the mind. We could comprehend resuscitation, but you couldn't even imagine a life without death. Really. You know what, guys, and I wish I could had a lot of time here to go. And I'm going to tell you something. When Adam fell, I'm just going to throw this out there. When Adam fell, creation fell. Everything changed. Because let me tell you something. There was no death in the creation. until the fall of Adam. But yet we know there was lions and tigers and everything. And do you realize that lions and tigers ate grass? They didn't start, death didn't come in until the fall. Their whole being changed. Their desire came into for death. I'm telling you, you've never seen a lion as it really is. And then you go read Isaiah, didn't the lion lay down with the lamb and they ate straw? I mean, I'm just telling you. There was no death. There was no death until that happened. So you've never seen a tree that don't die. All these weeds and stuff we've got, and I look at it and I see the poison oak and I just want to pull it up. You've never seen that in its resurrection state and its glory that was great. God said it was good. Everything He made was good. And I'm saying all of that death that got set into motion when Jesus got up, the gears of the whole universe stopped. And most churches, most people don't know what that means. Resurrection is the absolute and final contradiction to death. Jesus, who is the resurrection, stopped death. He not only stopped it, as I said, He reversed it. And not only did He stop it, He stripped death of all authority. He stripped death of all the results of death. To the point that it's as if it had never been. Death was humiliated, trashed. You know what I mean? Just, done with. In the death of Jesus, I wish people could get this. In the death of Jesus, death died. It died. Death died. And I know what our eyes will tell us. Look around. So-and-so died. So-and-so died. We go to funerals and that tree died and this and that. All lies. All lies. He says, I am alive forevermore. I mean, it says it right here in red. That means Jesus spoke it. He said, I am He that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. But there's another little statement He makes at the end of this. And have the keys of hell and of death. What does it mean if you got the keys? Listen. I got the keys to my car. I got the keys to my house. And you know what that means? If I got the keys to it, I own it. I live there. I mean, you do realize that. I don't have the keys to your house. I can't get in your house. But He went in and took the keys, meaning He's got entrance. It means He now lives there. He lives in hell and death. He said it, I didn't. You'll see what I'm talking about, because see, we live in a world that's full of separation. That means He went into hell and He got the keys and then He run back off to heaven. He took up residence there. I don't know if you get a hold of what I'm saying. He went into that place, spoiled the strong man's goods, throwed him out, and throwed the robber out of the house and took over the house. I don't know if you know, the gates of hell shall not prevail. He busted them gates down and went right in there and took it over. I don't know if you ever look at it in that sense right there, but that's what He did. He's got the keys. Death is no longer death as it's been defined. Because why? Jesus lives there. Jesus is perfectly at home in death because He's conquered it. He wiped it out. He took the sting away. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. Because I know, man, our religious minds go, wait a minute, Jesus is not in death. Just hang on. He's got the keys. You remember David said, if I make my bed in hell? He didn't say the Lord ain't there. He said the Lord, behold, the Lord is there. Listen. There's a verse here. Everybody quotes Thessalonians. I wish they'd read all of them, but anyway. Thessalonians chapter 2, or 2 Thessalonians, not chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 9, listen to this. Who shall be punished with everlasting destruction? How are they going to be punished? Presence of the Lord. It says it right there. By the presence of the Lord. There's nowhere you can go that He's not. From the glory of His power. And we'll get more into that verse from David. But before I keep going on with this, when I say He's at home in death, we've got to understand what death is. We've got to take a look at it. We've got to ask ourselves the question, what is death? I mean, to most people, you know, that's the casket at the end of life. But it's not an easy question here. What is death? Because there's many levels, there's many aspects of death. Because it's more than just what happens at the end of life, human life. Let me give it another word here and keep this in mind. Separation. Death, separation. Because that's what it is. They say, oh, so-and-so died. He's separated from his loved one. So death, really, separation. So, we go here a lot because it's the basis of life as we know it that happened in the garden when Adam and Eve refused to live in the glory of God. They were created to live in the glory of God, in God's love. But they sinned, and what does sin say? They come short of where they were supposed to live, right? They're supposed to live in the glory of God. See, we look at everything in do's and don'ts. Adam was created to live in the glory of God, yet we've all sinned. In other words, that means we believe the lie, so we come short of where we were supposed to be. Does that make sense? So in other words, if I'm supposed to be over here, and I'm here, I'm separated from where I'm supposed to be. So what is that? Death. Separated. God, we got to understand, God, who is love, created us for what purpose? To share His love, to put His love upon us. I mean, you want to ask the big why. That's why you were created to be loved. We walked away from that. And because we walked away from that, we were in Adam. When we walked away from that, a whole new universe came into being. A universe that wasn't supposed to be. A universe that had its existence, its foundation built on the lie. I can say foundation because it's sand. It's no foundation, but yeah. And that was the lie that Satan had tempted them with, and they believed it. A lie that said you can become God apart from God, that you have life in yourself, that God really can't be trusted. God is withholding from you. He doesn't really love you. God must be worshipped, and you got to serve Him and got to do all these things for Him. But we believe that. We believe it. So man turned inward. And that was the beginning of this word death. Do you know that I'm just throwing some medical stuff at you. Do you realize that no virus can kill you? There's no virus in the world that can kill you. And a medical doctor will tell you that. Because what would happen is, you may get a virus, if your immune system is up, which we talked about a few weeks ago, your body will kill it, send it out. But if your immune system is down, what happens is your body overreacts. And then it starts killing itself. That's what happens. So it's not the virus that kills you. Your immune system wasn't where it's supposed to be, and your body actually kills itself. Death. Death works in you. That's why you have allergies. You know what allergy is? You get some little pollen up in your nose or in your eye, and your body doesn't deal with it, right? And overreacts. And here comes the runny nose, and here comes the itchy, watery eyes, and everything else. Just your body overreacted because it doesn't know how to deal with it. So, death works in you. It's not the virus. It's not the lie that kills you. That's what I'm saying. It's not the lie that kills you. It's your body's reaction to it. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. Man turned inward. So death began to work in him. And you guys know this, but you can be dead while you live. You know what I mean? There are many people in this world that are dead men walking. They're dead as a hammer. Paul even said, well, you were dead in your trespasses and sins. You're alive physically, but you're dead. And when you're in that dead state, you begin to experience this separation. And when I'm talking about this separation, I'm not talking about a door or a wall. I'm talking about an abyss. You ever been to an abyss? Sometimes I think about that. You know, I've been to the ocean before, and I stand on the ocean. Stand there at the edge of the ocean, and I look out, and I can't see France. I can't see Spain. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm here, and God's over there. How in the world am I going to get to Him? There's a great gulf. That's what the Scripture said there with the rich man and Lazarus. There was a great gulf fixed. Great gulf. I couldn't get there. This vast emptiness. And then with it carries with it fear. The separation carries with it fear. And with that fear comes anxiety and worry. Listen, I grew up, preached to me that you're not a good Christian unless you worry. Worry shows how much you love somebody. That's hogwash. There's no worry in the kingdom. I don't know where. But you see, in order for me to be a better Christian than you, I worry more than you because I'm a deeper life Christian. I got more worry. I'm thinking, we'll quote the Scriptures. There's a rest left unto the people of God, but there's a rest that's full of worry and anxiety. What kind of rest is that? That's no rest. So with looking in this abyss, there's a deep anxiety, there's worry, there's fear, there's blindness as to what is on the other side. I can't see what's on the other side, so what do? All I can do is imagine. Blindness is also described as darkness. I can't see beyond where I'm at. I can't see reality. Reality's been obscured. And the person that's in this state believes that all of this is the reality. I mean, you understand it. The person that's in this state, looking at that abyss, full of fear, full of anxiety, full of darkness, blindness, they think that is the reality. And it's not. It's not. It's a blindness. It's a blindness to truth. A blindness to what is. And all of it came out of the lie. And now it's not just one lie. You know, I'll go look at some of this stuff on TV and people talk about the deep state and all this other stuff. But you realize it's not one, I heard a lady say the other day, it's not one smoking gun, it's a whole bunch, it's lie after lie. It's a web of lies. I mean, it's so deep and entangled, who knows what? So death is this separated by darkness and blindness. Isn't it amazing that, I can go tell people right now, I can say, look, man, you're worried, you're scared to death. You're Peter walking on the water. Turn off the TV. Turn it off. Because all you're seeing is the boisterous waves. And you know what? When you look at them, you'll go down. I mean, that's just the way it is. Well, I got to find out the latest information. The latest information is Christ raised from the dead. He loves you and He lives in you. That's the latest. That's all you need to know. Now go live in that. But in that blindness, in that darkness, in that worry, in that anxiety, the separation takes on form. It takes on substance. But remember, it's all life. We give it form. In truth, you're not separated. In truth, you're not separated from God. You never were. God doesn't participate in the lie. I mean, He just don't participate in it. Man says, I'm separated from God. God says, no, you're not. I never left you. I never forsook you. And to show that, we have the incarnation. What is that? I mean, that's Jesus, who is who? Emmanuel, God with us, the incarnation. He came. Think about this. If God was over here and I was over here, guess what He did? He came over here in the womb of a virgin and showed up and said, wherever you go, I'm there. And you know what He did over here? He loved us right where we were. Right where we were. But man's blind. Man loves the darkness. Didn't see it. We never separated from God, or God never separated from us. We walked away from Him. We've been running from Him. We did that based on the lie, and we created this world of lies, and we stand looking on the edge of that abyss, full of anxiety, full of fear, full of worry, full of separation, scared of God most of all, because everything I've been hearing, this is the great judgment of God coming on you. We've separated ourselves from the true God. And inside of that darkness, now listen to me, inside of that darkness, I told you, inside of that darkness and worry and fear and anxiety and blindness that it took on form, we created our own God. Romans tells you that. We did that. We created our own God. And all that God was a projection of Adam. Now what was Adam? He was full of fear, full of anxiety, full of worry, full of doubt, full of brokenness, full of shame, full of guilt. So now we got a God who does what? Amplifies my brokenness, my shame, my guilt, my fear, my anxiety, my worry. It's not a real God. It was an invented God. The more I look at this invented God, the more He looks like Satan himself. And the God who we invented is the one who's repulsed by sin. Right? We got a God that's invented that hates sin, and He hates a sinner. Oh, God, you better stop it. He's going to bust you up. You know how many times have I heard, if my people that call by my name will repent, I'll hear the Lamb, but if they don't, by God, I'm going to get them because I hate sin. What is sin? Sin is us believing the lie and making this monster that we made. We got a God that's disgusted with sinners, right? I mean, that's good preaching, ain't it? Oh, God, He hates it. I've heard people here tell me they're so glad that this is going on because God is wiping out just like I heard down there when Hurricane Katrina hit, God was wiping out them bunch of drunks down there in New Orleans. Hates them. Going to wipe them out of the hurricane, and now He's, I don't know who He's killing now, but, all the gay people and everything, He hates them and He's got to kill them and He can't stand it. Jesus is trying to hold Him back. No, Dad, no, please don't. No, I'm going to kill them. I hate sinners. Oh, that'll preach. It's being preached all over the place. They're the one to get 10,000 views. God foaming out the mouth, ready to get you. People are scared of Him. If you die today, Kathy, where are you going to spend eternity? You got one sin left in your life. Go bust hell wide open, gasoline underwear. I mean, what if you pull out down here at the bottom of the hill, some car hits you and you die? And you had sin going down the hill. I can see God opening up the books and saying, oh, no, Caleb. Look what you did at 2:15 today. At 2:16, you die. Sorry, can't let you in. A God whom you better serve. I always want the requirements of this when they tell me you better serve him. And I'm thinking, well, give me a list of what I'm supposed to do. You got to obey. Well, what I got to do? You got to keep the 10 Commandments. See, I'm done lost already. This is an invented God, man's invention, that he made out of his own darkness and fear and anxiety and just amplified it. Habakkuk said the fact. Habakkuk said it. God is too holy to look on sin. Habakkuk said that. If you go read the Bible, it's a conversation. I'm saying you're too holy to look on sin, and he says, wait a minute. I got something to tell you. The just will live by faith. You got me all wrong. It's a conversation. But we take that as gospel. We take it as gospel that Job said one morning, oh, man is just all the days of his life full of trouble. Man born of a woman, full of trouble. Oh, Lord, woe is me. He didn't say that at the end, did he? When he's bound on his knee. He wasn't saying that nonsense. But we make a gospel out of it. I've heard people, they've been telling me this week, I can't wait till God is blasting these sinners. And all of this junk, all it does is leave people with a terrible sense of being alone. And you know what? The Bible's loneliness is the worst. He said it right out of the gate. It's not good for man to be alone. So what is the darkness doing right now? We are separating everybody from everybody. And it's not good for man to be alone. Can't you see the darkness at work here? It's coming in saying, oh no, stay away. Do you realize this? Now I know we got these mothers here, but this is a scientific fact. You take a newborn baby, and you don't touch that baby, it will die. They're made to be held. They're made to be handled. They're made to be caressed. They're made to be. They will die without it. They will die. But yet, what has the darkness done? What have they done to us? What has our own government done to us? Don't touch nobody. Stay away. Hide out. Social distancing. It's not good for man to be alone. I didn't say it. God said it. This loneliness, man, I'm telling you, there's nothing worse than being alone. Nothing worse. The reason I say that, guys, is because I've been there. And I realize at this juncture, I cannot be alone. I'm never alone. I talk to the Lord all the time, and you know what? He talks back. He would tell me, don't you get lonely? No, I haven't been lonely in a long, 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 long time. And out of all that, we try to do so many things so that we don't have to face the loneliness, the anxiety, the worry. I could become a workaholic. I could become an alcoholic. I could become a drug addict. I could become whatever it is I try to do so that I don't have to face that. But all that's at the heart of the lie. That God has left us. God is separate. He's over yonder. You know what does all religion tell you? God's up in heaven looking down. I've said it myself, the big man upstairs. I got to talk to the big man upstairs. You know what I mean? Big man upstairs. It means what? Separation. Everything, most of our religious songs that we sing, it's all about separation. And it's all lies. God has left us and I'm alone. And all I see in that, I see God is way up yonder and I sin today, so the heavens brass. He won't hear my prayers, you know what I mean? How much more anxiety is that if I need a prayer answered and God's ticked off at me? Why would you think I want to go to Denise and ask her to pray? Because God's mad at me, Denise. If you can, slide this in there, on the slide. Don't tell him it's for me, but tell God, somebody needs a prayer. We grew up in that sort of, hey, you pray for me, because we're separated. Separated. This great separation. It's all lies. We see that great abyss that can't be crossed. I mean, that lie that came in was like an earthquake that didn't only separate us from God, it separated us from who we really are. That's why God asked the question, where are you at? Because, a few minutes ago, you and me, you was walking into glory, and now you don't know who you are. You wasn't created for fear. Adam was not created to live in fear. Wasn't. We become separated from our true selves. We're blind to it. Blind to who we truly are. Do you know who you truly are? God is your Father. I mean, that's who you are. Go read Luke and read all of that. It was the son of Adam who was the Son of God. I mean, it says it right there. We see ourselves as rejected. We see, and if you don't see yourself as rejected, you see yourself as rejectable. Right? In other words, you might be walking a thin line, but you know at any moment you could slip. And now what happens? Now you're back in the sinner class. And now you're back to being rejected. Because you know how God is. So what does Paul say about that? When we think of God, we think of God as an enemy. That's what the carnal mind does, don't it? God is not our enemy, but we see Him as being our enemy. So what do? We hide from God, we hide from ourselves. So what do? We call ourselves by what we think God would call us, sinners. You know what? Wasn't that what the prodigal son did? Oh, I've sinned against you. I've sinned against heaven. So what? But Candy will tell you, we grew up in that religion. God, before you call me this, I'm going to go ahead and call myself. I'm just a sinner. God may have called me perfect, but I'm going to jump up and say, I'm not perfect. He's working on me. Wait a minute, God. Wait a minute. I know I'm unworthy. Before you even say it, I'm going to tell you I'm unworthy. I'm no good. You know what? Has God ever told you you're no good? Have you ever heard Him tell you, you are no good, you are unworthy? See, it's all a pack of lies, but we call ourselves that. And God is up there, I say up there, He's there saying, who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you that? Obviously you didn't hear from Him. It's all out from separation. It's all lies. We have no idea who we truly are. We have no idea of our true belovedness. You're beloved. And that separation, we're separated in the fact, we ate from the wrong tree. The tree that we ate from wasn't the tree of life. We ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's the wrong tree. Do you realize what eating of that tree did? Out of that tree came all the false doctrines in the world. Because, that thing I mentioned earlier about serving God, do good. You weren't created to do good. You weren't created to do bad. You weren't created to not. You were created to be loved. We ate from the wrong tree. So out of that wrong tree, we think everything is doing and don't doing. That's a good word, doing and don't doing. We created a world out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil called trying. What a miserable world. We got sayings. If at first you don't succeed, try again. What a miserable place to be. Who likes to fail? I don't. Trying to get somewhere. Trying to earn something. So all that's out of the wrong tree. But you were created for a glorious rest. How can you rest? You see, that's why we can't get the two together. Because we're trying to live out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. which separates me from the rest that's left unto the people of God. Do you see? And what do we do in that rest? We discover who we are. We discover who God is. It's a rest. It's glorious. It's a love relationship. So this man, out of this lie, out of this separation that he thought, this darkness, this blindness, he invented a God. Now we're still talking about death. He invented this God, and now he's eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And now here we got Satan that does what? He accuses the man all day long, and he accuses God. He comes at you and says, you're no good, you're unworthy, you're a sinner. That's the devil talking. And we believe it. So, because we think our God is calling us that, because he's coming to us saying, well, you know what you did. God can never love you. You've got to repent. You've got to come to the altar. You've got to do all these things. You've got to do the 6 steps in the sinner's prayer. You've got to do it. It's all lies. Satan accuses them day and night. They overcome him by the blood of the word of their testimony and the blood. What are we talking about? We're talking about resurrection here. So because of all this accusation, we're afraid of God. And not only am I afraid of God, I'm afraid of you. And I know I faced this. So what do? We hide from each other. I'm afraid I'll be exposed as a fraud. I heard a guy say it the other day, we were talking about this. He said, I'm a preacher and I got to smile everywhere I go. I got to put on the front. I got to break it. I'm like, if I'm ticked off, you're going to know it. I mean, that's just the way I am. Oh, well, he wears it on his shirt sleeve. That's where you ought to wear it. That's where you ought to wear it. I can come boldly to the throne of grace and seek mercy for that. I don't want to come around you and pretend, and I don't want you to pretend. We can't get to the forgiveness part until we're honest with each other. Until I can say, you hurt my feelings. Or you can say, you know what, you hurt my feelings. And then we can move on into the healing. As long as we live in the pretend stage, you understand what I'm saying? So we hide from everybody. I used to think to myself, I'd say, I don't want to meet Paul. I would say that. Because Paul would find out I'm a fraud. Well, you know what? I'm not a fraud. I'm who I am by the grace of God. I am who I am. And by the grace of God, you are who you are. God made his fingerprints is all over you. He made you. He formed you in the womb. He made you. And you know what? He made me different from you. And he made you different from me. Thanks be to God for that. How many different more expressions of Christ can there be? How many people can there be? You see? I mean, it's wonderful. But Adam and Eve, as soon as they go out, they put on fig leaves. They're hiding from each other. And you know what? If I believe the lie that I'm a God, I've got to establish my God power. You know what we do to establish my God power? I've got to hurt the one that's weaker than me. Why do you think we have so much child abuse in the world? I was watching something yesterday about how many pedophiles and all this other stuff. If I'm going to establish my God power and you think of the sickness here. I want to establish my God power, but yet say I'm a weak man. And I got to pray on somebody. Right? I've got to establish my God. It's where all abuse comes from. All abuse is going to come out of this lie because I've got to establish my power. I've got to set my foot down and establish who I am. I'm a God here. I know it kind of makes you mad. It ought to. Got to hurt the weak when all manner of abuse comes out of this. Now you're starting to see this separation. We're separated from life, and even this death works in the physical. I mean, it comes to us as disease, doesn't it? It comes to us as diseases and everything else. We'll say, well, he died of cancer. He died of heart disease. He died of the virus. If you get what I'm saying here, no. You know what? In the Old Testament, You know, in the Greek, you got this thing called Greek mythology, which is mixed in with Roman mythology. So you have all these different words for hell and all of these other things. But to a Hebrew, hell was the grave. And you can go look it up. Go get you a good Strong's Concordance, look up the word hell, and it said it's the grave. Now, to a Hebrew, when you put somebody in the ground or in a dark place, they call that putting them in hell. They were in hell. They were in the grave. And to the Hebrews, it's when life was going on, and all of a sudden it came to a grinding halt. Pow! And you can't change it. Nothing you can do about it. So we put them put them in hell. We put them in the grave, and it was a. To them, they couldn't understand it. It was a place of misery. So they drew back from even thinking about it. That's why the Sadducees came into being, because they didn't want to think about it. I mean, have you ever heard people that, well, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to go there. I don't want to think about it. Let's just bury him out of our sight. I don't want to think about it. Let's just... And you see it, you're getting an idea here of what this death is. And you know, add on top of that we think sin has got to be punished. Got to be punished. You know, I hate that word, but you know, it's like, what? Sin's got to be punished. God's got to punish somebody. Somebody's got to pay, right? When you really begin to see the cross, that wasn't God beating up Jesus for your sin. I'm going to show you what it was here in just a second. That lie, I want you to think of this. That lie was like a virus that came in. Now think about what I'm telling you. That lie was a virus that came in the human race and brought the entire human race under the authority of death. And also what goes with that, the madness, the darkness, the blindness, the separatedness. So it's a virus that came in. You know, you've heard sin, sickness, that lie. So it wasn't the sin. You see what I mean? It's this virus that comes in. Now, we got a virus that's going on right now, and it's brought the whole world under its authority. Now everybody's exercising their authority. Can't go to church. Can't meet out. Can't go here. Can't go there. I'm God. I know what's best for you. Right? Yes, I know there's a constitution that says you have the right to gather out. But no more constitution. I know what's best. I'm God. I mean, so this virus, and it all comes from this lies, and then all the madness and everything that goes with it. Now, I got to ask you a question. What do you do with people in your life that are sick? Now, if I'm telling you a virus attacked the human race, a virus called the lie attacked the human race, what happens when somebody's sick? Do you put them in jail? Or do you go cure the sickness? Do you put them in a hospital and provide the right nourishment, the right whatever to get them well again? Well, see, religion tells me you sin, you got the virus, now you got to die or be punished forever. You understand what I'm saying? You got the virus, now you got to be punished for getting the virus. I mean, is that what we do with people that has the virus? I knew you was going to get it. I knew you was going to get it. Now you got to go to hell. You got the virus. That's what religion tells us. Are y'all with me? Y'all understand what I'm telling you? You take them to a hospital. God doesn't reject us. His hospital is His love. Jesus is His love manifest. He does not seek to punish us. Get that. God is not seeking to punish us. He saw Adam not to punish Adam. You know, I told you a minute ago, it says God can't look at sin. Well, let me ask you a question. Was Adam right in the middle of sin? Yeah. Was God looking at it? Yeah. I mean, he was. He was talking to him. The problem was Adam can't look at God. You see the difference? God can look. God sees you through and through, always. Our problem is we can't look at Him. And you know what? You know what happened right there in the garden? I'm just talking to you a little bit. Right while Adam is in the middle of blaming God for his sin. He was, you remember? Not my fault, it's the woman you gave me. You know, I was fine until she got here. She messed everything. So he's blaming God, saying, God, it's your fault. And you know what God did right there in the middle of that? God forgave him. And you said, what do you mean he forgave him? What have I been telling you? What is forgiveness? He released it. That's what forgiveness is. He said, okay, Adam, I forgive you. You're free to go. Do you get what I'm telling you here? Adam, I forgive you. You're free to go. But I want to tell you something, Adam. A promise, right? While Adam's mouth is running in the middle of his sin, God is forgiving him before Adam ever asked for it, and He gave him a promise of salvation that was going to come right through him. This is the kind of God I'm telling you about. I mean, do you get that? God, right in the middle of them sinning and blaming God for it, He forgave them, gave them a promise that He would take responsibility. God was saying, I'm going to take all this on myself. I'm going to take full responsibility. I mean, that's what we have in the Scriptures with it. In the shepherd goes and gets the lost sheep. Why did He do that? It's ownership. You don't lose nothing that's not yours. Right? It's got to be yours. And once it's yours, then it can become lost. If it's not yours, you don't lose it. But if it's mine, and see, this owner went and got his own sheep. Now, I can tell you, there's some things I have lost that we've stopped everything until we find it. And you know why? Because it was precious. It was of great value to me. Sometimes I lose stuff and then we don't care. Go get another one. You know what I mean? What I'm telling you is you are of great value. Great worth to the owner. Now, when the owner came to get the lost sheep, that's the incarnation. He became a man. Jesus, who is God, I think we've settled that point. Jesus, who is God, He's God the Son. They're one. The Word became flesh, the Word became human, and came right where we are. Right in the middle of our worries, anxiety, darkness, death, separation. He came right there. He didn't stand on the bank of the river. I mean, imagine this. I always think if people could get this picture. He didn't come to the edge of the lake and you're out in the middle of the lake and you're drowning and throw your life, throw your rope. You understand? You didn't even have the strength to grab a hold of the rope. And you were so blind you couldn't see the rope. But that's what religion tells me is he's standing over there saying, oh, grab a hold of this, come over here and do these 10 things and you'll be saved. He came right where we are in the middle of it. In the middle of it. He joined us in our drowning. Joined us in our death. Jesus came into every area of the life and He experienced it. He felt it. He bore it. And in the middle of it He said, no. I live by my Father. I live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Father. He didn't just come here to die on the cross. He got inside of our brokenness. He got inside of our abuse. He came to experience it and to turn it around. I think of this picture of the Matrix. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Matrix, but Keanu Reeves is there, and they're in the Matrix, and there at the end he understands. And there's the I call it the bad guys over there, and he runs and gets inside of him. And the guy's looking around, he gets inside of him, and he overtakes him. You'll just have to see the movie if you didn't see it. He came inside. He came where we are. He became one with our separation. But he never participated in our sin. He came into our world of the lie with its separation, with its fear, with its abuse, with its disease. And he said, I'll live that. I'll take all that. I'll take it all. But when he took it to himself, now you've got to remember, he's love. Lies cannot live in the presence of love. Something's swallowed up in it. So the lie lost its power. Jesus stood in a world of hate and he took it. Right? And he transformed the hate into love. He stood in the world of lies and he took it and said, I am the truth. He took our sickness. Do you know, we always say this verse right here, that with his stripes we're healed. But in Matthew chapter 8, I believe it's Matthew 8, it says he took their sin. He bore their sin. Now this is before the cross. I don't know if you get what was happening right here. He took sickness. Yet it couldn't live in him. Do you understand? I mean, it was like you could go and give him a shot of the coronavirus. And you know what would happen to it? It couldn't live in. It couldn't live in. You could give him a shot of the measles, of the live virus, and it couldn't live in it because he's life. I mean, you could give him a shot of whatever, Ebola, and he couldn't live in it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So Jesus would go to the sick people and say, oh, you got the measles. I'll take that. And here, you can have this. I mean, does this kind of open up your eyes a little bit to healing? That we can take what they have and it can't live in us because greater is he that is in you. Christ who is life. The resurrection power, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. If people could get a hold of that, what virus can live in you? You can, so that way I don't have to have gloves, I don't have to have a mask, I don't have to have anything. I can run into it and take it. And it can't live in me. The just shall live by faith. I mean, you get what I'm telling you here. Something took place, and this is what Jesus was doing. Peter got a hold of it, and he says, you know what? Silver and gold have I none, but I got something here, buddy, that I can now give to you and share with you. I look around, I see a world that's full of fear, and you know what I say? I got something I can give to them. You and me, us, we got something that we can share with them. There was an exchange that took place. They gave him their death. He gave them his life. Great exchange. And you know what? Tax collectors came to him. Remember I talked about how bad they were. Sinners came to him. And he took their sin. And you know what he gave to them? Righteousness. Look, he took everything. You know, the Pharisees were afraid to touch tax collectors. They were afraid to touch sinners. They were afraid to touch lepers. You know they were? They were afraid to touch. Because they thought, if I touch that, I'll get it. Do you get what I'm saying here? They were afraid to touch because they said, I'll get it. Jesus wasn't afraid to touch. He went and took it all into himself. Jesus touched them and he gave them life. Jesus forgave even right where they were. You remember the woman caught in the act of adultery? Do you remember? I mean, y'all know that story. Now, here's how it's preached today. Woman caught in the middle of adultery. First thing you need to do is you got to repent. You got to come up to the altar. You got to say the sinner's prayer. And you're going to have to fill out the cards. You're going to have to confess to everybody of your sin. You know what I mean? We got to make a public example out of her. What did Jesus do? Right in the middle of the act. I didn't come here to condemn you. I come here to seek and save that which was lost. Neither do I. He didn't come bringing condemnation, even in the very act. Our church people tell us today you got to do something so he'll forgive you. Too late. You already missed it. I'm telling you the gospel here. Jesus could look straight into her soul and said, you don't know what you're doing. The reason you're committing adultery is because you don't know what you're doing. I come here, a great light has come to those that sit in darkness. I didn't come here to condemn you. I come in here to be the light. Once you see who you are, you won't do that stuff no more. And then that brings us to the cross. At the cross, guys, all came against him. You understand what I'm saying? All the powers, principalities, everything got in league together against Jesus at that time. Remember the Romans who were enemies of the Jews, and the Jews were enemies of the Romans. Even they came together. They became friends. To have this man crucified, Herod, Pilate, they all got in league together. The soldiers, the peasants began to cry out, crucify him, crucify him. They tortured him. I don't know if you get a hold of this, but I've been telling you. Jesus, who was God, was tortured. Tortured by men. All manner. And Jesus, who was God, was willing by his own choice to put himself into the hands of wicked men. He said, here I am. And Jesus, he stood there. You know, they say they arrested Jesus. You remember they came out to get him at the Garden of Gethsemane. And they said, we seek Jesus. They come with all their boldness. And he stood up and said, I am. They fell over backwards. Swords went flying. And he even healed one there in the middle of all of that. But he put himself into the hands of wicked men and says, do to me what you will, and I'll turn it to your own salvation. I mean, that's what happened. And you remember at that time, that was the end of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, by the way, the cross, because they all thought they were doing good. You remember Peter, oh, don't go up to Jerusalem, you know, and everybody thought they were doing the right thing. Caiaphas, you know, better for one to die. They all thought they were doing the right thing. In the middle of all of that, as they're beating him and pulling his beard out and spitting on him, you know what it says? He didn't answer a word. Peter says it this way, he didn't threaten them. I mean, you would think he would have stood up and said, guys, you don't know who I am, but man, I'm going to get you. One of these days, when the judgment day comes, you are going to pay. Actually, whatever they did to him, he accepted it. They said he was cursed, he took it. Accepted it. They spit in his face, he accepted it. And he never once threatened back. You talk about a great judgment. Let me tell you what judgment took place. We judged God. We judged him. And he said, here I am. Judge me. Taste and see that the Lord is good. What is that? That's a judgment. We brought God before us and stripped him naked and spit in his face and beat him. And in the middle of that, he did not threaten back. He did not threaten retribution. He actually takes it all into himself. And he actually binds himself to them at some level beyond human comprehension and takes to himself. He becomes their sin. He becomes their curse. You know, the scripture said he bore our grief. He bore our sorrow, all of our pain, all of our abuse. Every abuse, pain, sorrow known to man, he took it into himself. He bore it. He experienced it. That great lie himself. He cried our cry. We thought it was Jesus' cry. It was our cry because he became us. And our cry was, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Right? He cried our cry. And you know, to a Hebrew, when you wanted to quote a psalm, they knew the psalm, so all you had to do was quote the first line. And they would know that psalm. And you know, in the middle of that psalm, or close to the end of that psalm, he says, he didn't really forsake me. He didn't despise or abhor me at all. No, he never left me, never. He was there with me. You can go read it. It's in verse 24, Psalm 22. Jesus, in the middle of all that, refused to yield to the lie. He only saw his Father in it all. And Jesus and the Father together. I love that little bit in the shack because that's what happened. Old Samuel, whatever his name is judging God and says, where was you? Oh, you are a big forsaker. You leave everybody. And she pulls her hand out and says, no, you don't understand. I was right there with him. And as the nails go into the hands of the Father and of the Son, they forgave. Father, forgive them. Release them from this. They don't know what they're doing. And he forgave them from what they were doing. He forgave them. And then Jesus entered into death. Do you get what I'm saying? He took all of that I just told you, all of that death separate. And by faith in his Father, he, by his own choice, gave up his spirit. Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. He who is life entered into death. And in doing that, all that death died. And you know what? You know what happened with that? So did every accusation that has ever been brought against you and brought against God died. Every sense of guilt that you've ever felt died. Every sense of shame that you've ever had died. All authority that Satan ever had died. All the ideas of rejection. I'm a sinner. I'm no good. I'm unworthy. All the filthiness that was invented of Adam towards God, it all went down. It all went into that grave. He took our separation and it forever exposed it as a lie. You are forgiven. You are loved. Now, remember, he's got the keys of hell and of death. And I know the world has a view of heaven is up and it's full of golf courses and trout streams. Hell is below and it's full of fire and demons. But I want to tell you this, guys, and I know this. I'm talking about here and now. There's people walking the streets of New York City. They're right in the middle of hell. Their life is hell. Their life is separation, worry, anxiety. There's people right here in Richlands that are walking right in the middle of it. They're experiencing hell while they live. Okay? Because I've been trying to tell you. He's translated us from that kingdom of darkness. Not one day I'm going to be judged whether I'm going to be in a kingdom of light or a kingdom of darkness. We started out in the kingdom of darkness, and He translated us out of that. But remember what I told you. If these people are in hell, Jesus has the keys of hell and of death. Jesus is at home in our hell. What did I just say right there? Jesus is at home and you can't escape Him. And then why would you want to escape love anyway? What I mean is, when He brought me out, He wasn't hollering at me from over there, and I'm over here saying, hey, if you'll say these 3 verses, then I'll come and save you. He's been carrying me, though, came where I was, and got me and carried me out. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the middle of my hell, Jesus has got the keys and came in and rescued. And you know what, guys? I can go preach this gospel to anybody in the world. And I can say, you may be in hell, but guess what? You're not alone. The Lord is at home in your hell. And you know what? He's took up residence there, and He's there as the resurrection. I don't know if you get what I'm telling you or not. And you know this underworld, and I know there's this afterlife, this underworld, whatever. Jesus went into. People say, well, what did He do? Well, you know, what did He do on Saturday? Well, I'm going to tell you what the Scripture says. He went into hell to rescue people, even all the way back to Adam, and say, yeah, neither did I condemn you either, Adam. Come to save you. Absalom, guess what? I come to save you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Every single one, Jesus went in there. And He's coming into our lives. If I make my bed in hell, and I made my bed in hell, you know what? Thank God the Lord was there and rescued me out of it. What about the people that get on drugs and go do all those things? Well, guess what? He's home there. They make their life a living hell. And guess what? The Lord is there. The Lord is there too. You can go nowhere. This is resurrection I'm talking about. You get what I'm telling you? Resurrection. Now think about what I'm saying. It's life that says, I was dead. Life Himself says, I was dead. I was all of that. But I conquered it. I am life. And I want you to understand this. He, of course, you know He's our covenant representative, but He made us. We're in Him. Think about this. In Him all things consist, right? In Him all things consist. And He took all of that consisted in Himself and died. So every disease, He took it into Himself. So coronavirus, what did He do with coronavirus? He took it into Himself. Measles, everyone. He took it into pneumonia, the flu, the cold, Ebola, H1N1. He took it all into Himself, didn't He? And He died. And, you know, I said this something to Valerie. Remember, you can't give a dead man a disease. And you know what happened? He brought us into Himself. And the whole creation died. And then came forth in a brand new life. You understand what I'm saying? We were lost, and the owner comes to get His precious. The lost are worth seeking. We belong to Jesus. Do you realize? Being born again, I got to say it this way. Being born again is you experiencing what has already taken place. You already belong to the Lord. There is none that don't belong to the Lord. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. There's not a drug addict that don't belong to the Lord. Being born again is you experience your belongingness. We say it a translation, and it is because you're experiencing for the first time life. But you know what? The reality was there all the time. The reality is everybody walking around this world that ever will walk around is beloved of God. Every already been forgiven. Everybody that is in this world and ever will be has been sought out and rescued of God. But what does your reality tell you? Do you understand? That's why we pray the prayer, Lord, open our eyes. Lord, open our eyes. Open the eyes of our hearts. Not so that something can be done. Revelation is not something that can be done. Revelation is to see what has already been done. When Jesus went into death, He carried us all into death. All our guilt into death. All our shame into death. All our abuse into death. All our brokenness into death. And He became as us. Why? So that we could become as Him. And you know, every time somebody says, I'm unworthy, I'm no good, we're spitting in His face again. Because it's not true. What's not true is a lie. He took our death, and what did He do? Gave us His life. He is our life. He got inside of us. He didn't give us some injection. He Himself, who is life, came inside of us. I mean, what kind of cure is that? You know, you go to the doctor and they give you a pill, and now you feel better. What if the doctor gets inside of you? That's what happened, guys. Death has been conquered in the body, in the mind, in the emotions. If it's conquered in Him, it's conquered in me. I'm going to give you a verse and I'm going to quit. I mean, he said He did it so well that there would be in you no more sense of shame, no more sense of guilt, no more condemnation. Yeah, you did all that stuff, but you know what? The resurrection, it so completely wiped it out. You don't even have no more sin consciousness, He said. Why would I fear this other stuff? If I know resurrection, really? Listen to this. Jesus is about to go to the cross here. In John chapter 12. Jesus answered them, saying, the hour's come that the Son of Man should be glorified. What He's saying there is you will know me like you've never seen me before. I'm going to be exposed. You're going to see me and the Father, man, like nobody's business. And He says, verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it brings forth much fruit. You know, if I just stay here like I am, I'll be lone. It'll just be me. But you'll see in my glory, the whole reason I came, that I'm going to reproduce my resurrection life in all of y'all. I'm bringing about a brand new heaven, a brand new earth, a brand new you. A you that's united to me. There's an old saying that went like this. They would, you ever seen them work on a sword? You know, they're making a sword. Well, they take that sword and put it in the fire until that sword becomes red hot. You know what's happened? We had a sword and we had fire. But now we've mingled the two together. And now the fire is in the sword. The sword is still a sword. It's still got all the attributes of being a sword. But yet, the sword has become one with the fire. And the fire has become one with the sword. And I love that view. Because now, He who is light has become one with you. He who is light has become one with you. He who is love has become one with you. So what? Now you are the light of the world. Now you are, through you, the love comes to the world. The blessing of God has become one with you. So now you are bringers of the blessing to the world. Healing comes to the world. How? Through